let's spend a moment here in the Lotus Mudra.
I don't want to touch these things that I have to touch here. Or can I?
Yeah, you're really etheric. You're an etheric being, and you're being etheric. Yeah, I can really feel the effect of this on my heart field. So I'm very excited to take another step with this next little talk on this theme of the Tantric universe, which I'll unpack a little bit now. We're going to be rolling into our weekend immersion coming up. Just a reminder, Saturday from 1 until 8 o'clock. Don't make any plans for afterwards. We're stopping at 8. We're going to stop in silence. You're going to go home in silence, be in silence with some home play that you'll work with, you'll take into the night, and then suddenly come back here for 10 a.m. Arriving in silence, spend some time to milk down the night with journaling, then some dieting, and then some circling on the theme. And also remember to bring some food that we can share with each other for supper on Saturday and lunch on Sunday. Lots in store. Practices, theory, going to get into some massage stuff, looking at yoni massages, and lingam massages, looking for demois. Just kidding. I'm not kidding about yoni and lingam massage. We will be exploring that because it's an important and vital part of awakening and sublimating sexual energies. But before we go there, I want to quote some dead Greek mathematician who said that God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. God is a circle whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. And I love that because it really resonates with this idea that we live in an infinite and eternal, all-inclusive universe that has multi-dimensions. And this is really what's missing from our modern scientific paradigm that looks at things in a materialistic way, spatially and temporally, and has theories like the Big Bang, the Big Crunch theory, that it's expanding, and it's going to contract and contract into a big crunch. And as I said last time, I believe that expansion and contraction are both happening. Both are happening as principles on a higher dimension. They both exist as principles on a higher dimension that gets played out on the dimension of space and time. And those two principles have found their way to the center in the human heart that plays out expansion and contraction in linear time and space. And this is central to Tantra, which means an instrument of expansion. So we're really wanting to work with this principle of expansion in our Tantric work, which also involves its opposite, which is contraction. And we can see that in working with the Yantra cards. The Yantra cards, we look at this contracted center and yet something expands in our field based on the quality of the particular yantra we're looking at. So from this contracted center to a certain quality of expansion with each of the yantra cards has a beneficial effect on our chakras, which also have a center point and a circumference, an expansion out to a circumference. So I want to talk a bit about the point of the point. The point of the point. And that's in Sanskrit referred to as the bindi. People put a little point or spot on their forehead to indicate something. And as comes from the same root as bindu, which can refer to different things, including the point at the back of your head that vortexes out. This point in the forehead, the bindi, is really pointing to the pineal gland, which is also a vortexing gland. Pineal comes from the same root as pine cone. It looks like a pine cone, which is this swirling, vortexing shape. And they all really speak of the vortex nature of space itself. That space itself has this principle of vortexing. And we can see this on the earth in many different forms, things vortexing, and we see this also out in the fabric of outer space. And this outer space has different vortexings, the spinning of the earth, the spinning of the solar system within a spiraling galaxy, is really informed by something of the inner space or of a higher dimension. There's a higher dimension that holds these principles that then inform the outer expression in the material world. So let's talk about a point, just a spot, a point, and ask, what does it want to do? Well, it wants to become something other than a point. It can't become more of a point. It has to become less of a point. And so it's a contracted point that's going to move out. It may want to join with another point. Say there's a point here and wants to join with another point. That would form a line. We would have a straight line between 2 points that want to join with each other. And the idea of a point and the idea of a line, these are ideas. These are ideas, these are principles that exist on another plane that we could say is perfect. You could have a perfect point, you could have a perfect line, you could have a perfectly straight line. But to become manifest, to move, requires a force. And this is where things become tantric. Because tantra means an instrument of expansion. And so a point can expand, and it can also encounter the counterforce of contraction. And I'm going to use the whiteboard here to show a little bit of how this works. We have a point here, and it doesn't want to be a point anymore. There's some sort of force. We could even say it's desire, but we'll talk more about that on the weekend. We could say that everything is driven by desire. So it moves away from its point. In the straight line, And it could be desire, but we could also think of it as levity is pulling it away, and then gravity pulls it back. So it returns from its expanded state to its contracted state of the point. It could be the polarity of levity and gravity. It could be the polarity of electro and magnetism. It could be the polarity of pressure that compels it to move out from the point, and then a vacuum is created that draws it back. And this is kind of what the Big Bang is based on. Was it all started from this little point, smaller than the point of a pin, that had tremendous heat and pressure that then exploded and expanded out in a Big Bang, and then one day inertia or vacuum will draw it back in the big crunch. That's the theory. But what my theory is that there's these different principles that are on a different plane of existence, the etheric astral complex of things that becomes expressed in the physical. And these are perfect principles. These are, I'm using the word perfect because I'll explain how the polarity of perfect is imperfection. And we see lots of imperfection on this plane of existence. There's perfection on the higher plane that informs manifestation on the imperfect plane. So this perfect principle of expansion and contraction, it makes a perfect straight line back and forth. But because we're talking about things that are subject to the imperfection of this plane, there's allowance for deviation from perfection. And this is beautiful because nature makes rules and nature breaks rules. And so because of this imperfection that it's subject to, there'll be a deviation from this perfectly straight line. It goes out straight, but then the counterforce comes in and it deviates from that straightness. And it's happening in the opposite direction too, right? Because the point's going out in all directions. And we start to see movement take place of a vortexing, spiraling nature. So the point I'm making here is that vortex movement, which is the signature of the universe, is coming from the fact that there's points all over the place, right? The universe is made up of, has points, has centers everywhere, and circumference nowhere. These points are moving out from the unmanifest into the manifest and meet resistance that causes contraction and deviations that gives rise to the spiral. Mm. You get it? Mm-hmm. Thank you. This is really, what I've been working on for a few years.
Can you repeat that last part, please?
That everywhere there's points, pressure, that want to move out from the center, and they do, but then vacuum draws it back. But because it's coming from an unmanifest, it's coming from an unmanifest realm that has perfect principles, but it's coming into the manifest where there's imperfection that's allowed and needed. So there's always deviations from the perfection. So the straight line starts to curve. And these curves begin spiraling, vortexing. And this is why we see the vortex nature everywhere. It's the fundamental gesture of life, movement, dynamic. And we had talked about already how that has found itself at the heart of our very being with this vortexing organ, the heart, which is in the shape of a vortex and causes things to move in vortex motion based on the principles of vacuum and pressure. Rudolf Steiner was very adamant that the heart should not be thought of as a pump, but there is that principle on the physical level of vacuum pressure, vacuum pressure, vacuum pressure. But that's only a physical basis for something that is connecting to higher octaves, higher dimensions. It's really to keep our heart in harmony with the cosmos, which is spiraling. Keeps us living in Ma'at, as the Egyptians called it, living in Mat, karmic harmony, cosmic harmony, or Dharma. So, yeah, this polarity of perfection and imperfection gives rise to infinite possibilities, infinite shapes, infinite forms. That's why we see infinite forms and species on our planet. It's all based on this fundamental principle, which we're going to be working with in our own work here. And it also not only looks like a flower, right? Flowers, the petals of flowers are the result of this basic principle of everything moving out from a center and coming back and spiraling. Same with chakras. Chakras are thought of as these lotus blossoms that are vortexing. So, yeah, chakras are an expression of this principle of a point expanding and contracting and then activating into spiral motion. And these chakras are interfacing with the imperfect physical body, because chakras stand in between the physical body. They're connected to the different physical organs, primarily the endocrine system. But they exist in this higher dimension of the etheric and the astral plane. The astral plane you could think of is where these principles exist, and the etheric is like the medium between the astral and the physical. So the chakras are like a medium. They're transceivers of info energy between the physical plane and the astral plane. Physical plane, well, the astral plane is where the perfect principles are, and the physical plane is where they're imperfectly expressed. And that imperfection allows for deviations and transmutations. It's beautiful, both in its simplicity and its complexity.
Jesse?
Yes, please.
So the chakras essentially then are in the etheric body?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The etheric body really is very similar to what we see in the plant kingdom. Plants are etheric beings. And chakras are plant-like. So these chakras, we're moving into chakras. And we're going to have fun this weekend exploring your own chakras personally, your personal chakras. And these chakras are important because they're organs for an even higher dimension of ourselves. We've got the physical, the etheric, the astral, but then there's the spiritual level. And coming from the spiritual level is this I am consciousness. I am self-aware. This I am spiritual nature self, which is really egoic. The word ego means I. And this ego, this I, is the new kid on the block. Physical body is the oldest part of the human in the great evolution that's been taking place. The newest part is actually this ego that we see emerging within the physical body. It's the new kid on the block, and it's the new intermediary. Right? Last time we talked about the different intermediaries in the old school, where the guru was the intermediary for the devotee, or the shaman and his plant spirits were intermediaries that were put into the human in a form of controlled possession that would go to work within the human for a period of time to activate and so forth. Even today we have priests that act as intermediary between the congregation and the divine. But that's old school. Now the I am ego spirit self working with the chakra stalk being appendages for this intermediation, is the new school. To have this between the divine and the physical world. So see above. It's my note, see above. I don't think I want to see above.
Sorry, did you just say the ego is in the physical plane?
No, spiritual. But it's in the physical body. That it has access to the physical plane through the physical body.
Witness consciousness would be the spiritual body.
Pardon me?
The witness consciousness, the I am, the observer.
Yeah.
That would be the spiritual body.
Yes. The I am witness consciousness is the self-aware ego. The self-aware I.
So when people talk about ego death,
They need to be talking about ego resurrection at the same time. Because we don't want ego dissolution. That's where people get into trouble. They think this is why my book, the next book after this, is called Everything You Need to Know About the Ego.
because that like ego with like over attachment to ego, you kind of get attached to certain things. But
That's
like,
an immature ego. That is egocentric.
Right.
The ego is a problem, but the ego is also the solution when it's matured and developed and works with the chakras as its new organs.
Sorry, some claim that we have the mind body as well, right? And the ego is sitting in the mind. Rather than
The mind body is the astral body.
or the mind is actually.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So ego is
Manas.
So ego
The
is
astral
not-
body is sometimes referred to as the manas in Sanskrit, which means mind.
Okay, so there's an observer and then there's the ego. So when we notice what's happening.
The
here,
ego is the
us.
observer. The ego
is
is
the
I.
observer.
The ego means I.
Mm.
And its potential is to become self-aware and to become other-aware. But it takes maturation. We don't want to dissolve the ego away. See, what I'm teaching about the ego, it goes against, like 180 degrees against most of the teachings today that say the ego is bad. But this is big, but I call it the crime of the century. When Eastern teachings started to come over and talk about a different concept, but they appropriated the word ego and used it incorrectly.
Ego is
Freud, Jung, Steiner, none of the Western teachers thought of the ego as something bad, but it's critical for our functioning. It's central. to the development of our spiritual nature.
So with Jung, he talks about like the ego and how you need to be aware of that, but like he also talks about like the self.
And the ego is at the center. The ego is the function at the center of the growing self. Freud talked about the ego. Yeah, I can't really get into this. This is taking us really down a different track. But I did a whole class on this a year ago, and I'm going to turn it into a book.
One more question, because I know we also talked once about like the brain as like kind of a receiver.
The brain as a receiver?
Yeah.
Yep.
How does that connect and relate or translate with like the I am and the ego?
Yeah, the brain is a physical. I'm actually going to get into it right now.
Okay.
You're right on the money. I love it when people ask questions before when I'm just about to give the answer. Because the human is threefold. And on the one hand, we've got the brain, and then the heart, and then we've got the metabolic, reproductive organs, and limbs. This is all physical, right? We've got the brain, but it's associated with thinking. The heart, feeling. And here, the willing. So we're already talking about two different dimensions. The physical dimension, and then a higher dimension where we have these cognitive capacities. And we're doing this in our Tuesday class, right? With the Wizard of Oz and these three parts of Dorothy as the ego self at the center. And then she has these three different parts. One's representing the physical brain, the physical heart, and the physical will. But on a higher level, it's her capacity to think, to feel, and have courage. And so, yeah, that is tied into our personal chakras, this threefoldness. But that's just all housed within the physical body. There are more chakras above. Matter of fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there's chakras below on the chakra stalk. Another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ones below are called the pre-personal. Pre-personal chakras. The ones above are called the transpersonal. Transpersonal chakras. So not only is there this threefoldness in our physical body, threefoldness really in the astral body. The astral body is the mind with thinking, feeling, willing. But there's threefoldness in the chakra stalk. The personal chakras in the physical body, and then above there's transpersonal chakras, and below there's pre-personal chakras. And to me, these are very important to understand and to activate, because the prepersonal and the transpersonal chakras are like bookends that hold the middle in different ways. They support what's going on at the middle, and at the middle of the middle is this vortexing heart, and down here below, the earth is also spinning. So we can call this one at the very bottom the our earth connection chakra. Yeah. Which is vortexing, and then at the very top is our cosmic connection chakra. And what else is going on in here?
Dragons?
Dragons?
That's what I think of. Dragons.
Well, you're actually right. I mean, but down here is really connection. The pre-personal chakras connect us to the dragon energy of the earth.
That's what I feel when I connect
Ancient.
into them.
Beautiful, beautiful. You're right on. And this is what I was taught by one of my teachers, Samuel Sagan, and Clair Vision. You know, is these lower chakras connect us to ancient, you could say, mythical dragon energy. And this is why in China and whatnot they worship and they pray the dragon around as this mighty force that needs to be respected and venerated, to stay in alignment with it, so people can connect to this dragon or this serpentine energy, this vortexing energy, this spiraling energy. Then in the middle here, there's 3 chakras, 1, 2, 3, threefoldness, which correlates to this threefoldness. So we have pre-personal thinking chakra, feeling chakra, and willing chakra. Pre-personal, connecting us to the ancient thoughts, feelings, and will that's embedded in the earth being really a repository of the past. Up here we have the transpersonal thinking, feeling, and willing chakras here in the middle. And this, to round this out, there's one more here which we can call the lower threshold chakra, because this is really a threshold between our personal chakras and the pre-personal, and here is the upper threshold that has to be passed if we're going to link our personal chakras with the power of the pre-personal chakras or the higher transpersonal chakras. These pre-personal chakras they hold the wisdom of the earth. They hold the wisdom of the past. They're in the realm of Shakti, the power of Shakti. And the evolution of these pre-personal chakras preceded the emergence of the human. This is all stuff that evolved and developed before humans manifested on the physical plane. There's tremendous power there to be had and to be worked with for cleansing, healing, moving. That is going to be absolutely essential for our evolution to be propelled forward. The transpersonal chakras are more connected to the future. They're connected to the wisdom of cosmic intelligence, which is going to guide us into the future. It's the realm of what Tantra calls Shiva consciousness. And these are all different octaves of each other. I mean, that should be quite clear. This is a lower octave of thinking, feeling, willing, middle octave of thinking, feeling, willing, and then a higher octave. And I literally mean octaves. When we start to work with these, we're starting to understand them, but we're also going to work with them, or learn how to work with them, that we can do that through pitch, to align pitch, as Julia was already introducing us to that today, working with different pitches, the lower, the middle, the higher. Yeah. I forgot to mention that these are also divided into the three, where pre-personal chakras are more will, the will of the earth. And we're going to be talking about Kundalini. You're talking about dragons, you're talking about Kundalini. Spiral. The personal are more connected to the feeling realm, which is kind of obvious. The heart is at the center of center. And the transpersonal chakras are really more the thinking, cosmic thinking, personal feeling, pre-personal will. I think that's all I'm going to say. We're almost out of time, if not already out of time. Any questions or comments? This is helpful for me. I'm workshopping this stuff, as you know. I'm working on the book right here. Yes, please.
So, you know how from the images that I've seen, the chakras are kind of in form of a funnel. The one of the Mulahaja funnel facing kind of down.
Funnel, a vortex.
Yeah,
A vortex is a funnel.
Funneling upward. What are these ones like? How are they connected? Like, where are they connected? Like,
That's a simplified version of what I'm putting here. Yes, I'm going to get to that. That's coming up next. The vortexing from a contracted state, the funnel opens up. Contracted state, the funnel opens down. But there's subdivisions within that funnel. And as we not only learn about this, we start to activate it, we can tap in to that. It's not as complicated as it may look here. Once we start to activate it, we can experience pre-personal power, pre-personal will, and cosmic thought.
are they part of the lower and higher chakra, or no? There's standalone chakras on
It's all together. You'll see. You're always a little ahead of the curve here, but it's on the what's coming. Anyone else want to ask or comment?
Well, that's just wanted to say that's all very exciting and interesting. And I'm looking forward to dive deeper on the weekend. It's great stuff.
Good. I'm glad you're excited. Yeah, I'm obviously passionate about this.
We cannot tell.
This is
Chakra
excellent.
enough and complicated enough.
Where does all this come from? Like, is it from your gray matter and observation and downloads, or is it from other bodies of knowledge?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I've been studying chakras since age 20. I think I showed you that book the other day. My very first book that I got was about the chakras, and I've been asking cosmic intelligence to teach me about this, partly out of necessity to put myself together after being dissolved, having my ego dissolved, and having to start from scratch, from the ground up. But I've had some great teachers: Dr. Robert Gilbert, Dr. Samuel Sagan, Dr. Ibrahim Karim, Dr. Rene Carrito. So, I've had a lot of little great gems and seeds planted in me over the years. And then I'm doing my own research. Yeah, I get downloads. A lot of this is just me. Not only downloads, but just to finish off here, also synesis. Synesis is another form of knowing. There's, looking for empirical evidence is one way of knowing. There's gnosis, which means experiential knowing. And then there's synesis, which means when small ideas come together to produce big ideas. I've loved that word, synesis. I learned it back in my 20s when I was studying the Bible, because the Bible refers to synesis as a way of knowing things. It's also used in literature to refer to small rivers coming together to form a big river. That's a synesis. So a lot of my knowing is taking small ideas and putting them together, and then getting some sort of confirmation in my spiritual scientific investigations. Yeah, just doing my job.
And the teachers that you said, so one is clear vision, one is sacred geometry, right? That Khalil guy is sacred geometry. What are the other two bodies?
Dr. Ibrahim Karim was biogeometry.
Yeah.
Rene Carrito was one of the main teachers at the Rudolf Steiner College when I attended that.
Yeah.
If you look up
the last one?
my website lists all the different influences.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a page all about me.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I like how it's fractal.
Please explain.
So the idea of fractal.
Fractal, yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's kind of like small snippets of something bigger, but there's a bigger, like the stock market is fractal, right? It kind of at a higher level it looks the same as it does at a lower level.
Yeah.
So it just kind of breaks into smaller pieces, but it's kind of the same. I like how it's fractal.
Every
Like,
piece
there's,
it has the hole in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Smaller
Fractal means every
pieces.
piece has the hole in it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah. Write that word down, please. Fractal.
Yes,
Okay. Yes, please.
in my 20s, I had this big time where I was reading all these cool books and I was having all these epiphanies. And I was reading this book called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and this other one called The Self-Aware Universe by Amit Goswami. And they were bridging sort of Western ideas and Eastern ideas. But I had that epiphany inside myself that the center of the universe is everywhere. And so when you say that, I know what you mean, and I'm so happy to be in this class, and I think what you're doing is awesome, and I'm just so glad to be a part of it. Super cool. I can't wait for this weekend.
Yep. The universe is full of centers, and you are one of them. And at the center of your center is your heart center. And that is a fractal of the entire universe. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that shape, that shape of the heart? I actually saw that after I was doing this mantra for a long time, that vision came to me, and then I went to a church and I saw it on a piece of art, like an artwork, hanging up in this church called the Temple of the Living God here in St. Petersburg, which is like a metaphysical church. And I was like, I saw that in my mind's eye. And then I saw it when I was researching about the heart not being a pump and being a vortex. It's like this beautiful shape. And that is some primo understanding about the heart being a vortex, spiral, and fractal of the cosmos.
Yeah, and now you're building with the right stuff. Yeah, the right stuff. Okay, so y'all know what's coming on for the weekend. There is one more reading assignment. That is chapter 6 of Jewel in the Lotus, which is called Awakening the Chakras. And yeah, I mean, you can try and read it before the weekend. We'll be talking a lot about the chakras, but don't sweat it. You know, I'm just giving these reading assignments so people will look at Jewel, the review Jewel. I'll be bringing additional information to what's in Jewel, so that's the main thing. But that is the home play for the week. Next Thursday is our last class where we wrap. But yeah, so we'll just see you here Saturday at 1 o'clock. Let's close out doing the Lotus Mudra and 3 ohms. Let's do 1 low pitch, 1 medium pitch, and 1 high pitch. Nice exhalation. Vacuum. Inhale. Build and hold pressure. Even do a root contraction. And vacuum. Inhale. Pressure. Medium pitch. Vacuum. Hold. High pitch. Love, light, and peace to us all.